Hey guys, I'm Dan and welcome back to Adventures in Guitarland, where I teach you how to play guitar by playing a role-playing game. Today, we're going to go over rhythmic notation specifically. But before we do, click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you're notified whenever I come out with new content. But for now, let's get into this whole ordeal. Alright, so for rhythm, you have to understand the music is divided into mathematical equations, basically. There is math, there's counting involved with music. There are beats, there are measures. So what we're going to look at is what's called common time, also known as 4/4. It's a 4 above a 4, typically separated by a line. What that means is that a whole note is 4 beats, and every measure contains 4 beats. So if I was playing a measure and I had a whole note that was a E minor chord, that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was a whole note. Now, how often do you see whole notes as guitarists? Yeah, you see it occasionally, but mostly you're dealing with quarters, eighths, the occasional half note, and things of that nature, and 16th notes. So that's what we're going to go over today. First, I have one of the most important things any guitar player should have, a metronome. Now, you can get an app on your phone that works just as well, or you can just pull it up on computer by going into Google or whatever search engine you prefer and typing metronome, online metronome, something of that nature. So I have this set to 80 beats per minute, which means every minute has 80 beats. And what you'll hear is, that was the downbeat. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 beats. Those would be quarter notes. So just keep that in mind as we're going through this lesson. You should be doing this with a metronome. So, what are these different things and what do they look like when annotated? Well, it depends. First of all, if you're looking at actual music notation, standard notation on a treble clef or bass clef or the combination on the grand staff, you will see the standardized Western version. And what that is you have a whole note, then you have a half note, quarter note, eighth note, 16th note. So you might have those, see those, but what do they mean? Well, all that it means is that a whole note is 4 beats. So if we're doing that same 80 beat per minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your whole note. If you're talking about half notes, well, it's half of a whole note. So it's 2 beats. There's your half note. Quarter notes, it's every beat. I sped up. Go back to 80 beats per minute. And really that's all I was doing in the beginning of this video was I was playing through the A minor pentatonic scale using quarter, eighth, and 16th notes. And while I was doing that, I was counting in my head. And you have to be able to count out notes. So when you're counting out quarter notes, it's real easy. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're counting out eighth notes, you add an and in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. When you start getting into things that are different, such as 16th notes, it gets a little harder. It gets a little harder to say, but it definitely you have to watch your timing. So what I was always taught was to say E and a. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. And that's still what I think in my head. So I'll keep this down fairly low so that you can still hear me. But what I was doing in the beginning was literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. That was all I did. And then of course I did come up here and do that little sweep picking thing, which we'll get into later, but I was just having fun. But yeah, that's what I was doing, and it was all me counting in my head while I was playing that to make sure that I stay in time. So why is it important for you to understand this and stay in time? Well, obviously if you're someone who is listening to songs and just looking up tabs and learning from tabs, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with that. I did that for years. It's probably not going to have a lot of these notations on there. You just have to go off of what you know from the song and play along and know where you're at. But if you're looking at any kind of standardized notation, you're going to see these symbols on there, and you need to know what they mean. specifically rhythm-wise. Rhythm is one of those things that if you try out for a band or you're trying to write a song and you don't have good rhythm, you're not going to make it. It doesn't matter if you can fly through that sweep arpeggio in every position and, you know, both major and minor, and you can play it faster than anybody. If you don't have rhythm and can't keep a consistent time, people aren't going to want you in your band. They're not going to want you in their band. They're not going to want to listen to you because it's going to sound off. It's not going to sound correct. So rhythm is integral to playing music. So how do you practice this? Well, first of all, use your metronome. I'm going to go ahead and turn mine on, so you're going to hear it. As it's going through here, I'll put it over here so I can still see it, because that's the other thing. I like to be able to see my metronome, so I know where 1 is. And play through your scale using quarter notes. Now I'm just going to ascend here, but I recommend going up and down the scale. Then once you got quarter notes down, practice going up and down your scale with eighth notes as well. Then once you have your eighth notes down, practice it with 16th notes. Simple as that. So practice that with your metronome. You also want to practice this with your chords as well. Again, a metronome is key. So I'm going to be playing whole notes, and I'm going to go D, G, C, D in whole notes. And I want you to pay attention to this. So if you notice, what you heard was every time the downbeat came was when I played that next whole note. That's what you want. You want to be able to switch through those very quickly. Now, if you're still kind of getting used to going between the chords quickly and you can't just go super fast, what you want to do is like half a beat beforehand, switch to that next chord. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, so you switch, so you're always ready for that one until you get used to playing them. Additionally, in addition to whole notes, you also need to start practicing your chords with your half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes as well. Now, 16th notes, you're probably not going to be switching chords on 16th notes. That's probably not going to happen. You may do it on quarter notes, typically not. So a standard, like, you know, just a typical rock song, you might have. So if you notice, I use that upstroke at the end. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That end is when I switched chords. And that's a very common technique that a lot of people use. They'll count out and then they'll have that little hop right before that next downbeat to switch their chord. And when you're playing, A, people don't really notice it, and B, it actually kind of adds a little cool sound to what you're playing. It's just not just straight. So get used to changing those chords fast. But one of the things you do want to get used to doing is playing your chords in different times. I'll turn that down significantly for this. So instead of just going 1, 2, 3, 4, just 1, 2, 3, 4, you want to practice all of them. So that's another thing you need to practice, going across all those strings in time. And this is where that back and forth alternate picking is really going to help. Because if you're alternate strumming, you can get that down pretty well. If you don't have a metronome or you're getting ready to play in a live situation, I highly recommend thinking of the beat on downstrokes. And. See how the end of that eighth note is on my upstroke? So my downstroke is always 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 3. Get your hand used to that when it comes to the alternate picking. All right, so surprisingly enough, this went a little longer than I intended, and we covered a fair amount of information on rhythm, rhythmic notation, and how you should practice it. Incorporate it into your playing. It will pay off dividends. One bonus tip for this, if you're playing something like, oh, I don't know, metal, and you want to play that very Metallica and thrash, Megadeth type thrash metal where it has that pedal tone underneath, that pedal tone is typically a 16th note. So as you can see, very applicable to just about every style of music. All right, guys, that's the video. So hopefully you now understand why rhythm is so important to music and is so important to your adventure in Guitarland.